So warm welcome to our February 2024 meetup. As mentioned a couple of seconds ago, we will wait 1 or 2 minutes more so people can join. We have a couple of registered people who are not there until yet. We are in a Zoom call mode, so you should be able to interact with us as usual. Let me just double check that the chat itself is working, because I know that's one of the most important features in a Zoom meetup. I learned it at least, but it seems like everyone and anyone can interact directly, so it looks good. Okay, I would say let's start. Today we have a great topic to cover, but before having us jumping into the topic, René Recker and myself will guide you through the today's presentation. The topic of today is the Tricerat meetup. So we have a technical meetup today where our IGEL Ready partners are showing and demoing the use case. Today, the topic is a modern approach for diverse environments, and we are more than happy to have Andrew Parlett and Joyce Arias from Tricerat with us, who will, right after our presentation, take over and deliver an amazing session, as we have seen yesterday in our dry run. René, you have set up a meetup. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, there are more meetups to come. So the next fixed one is with Lenovo. As you heard, Lenovo is doing, or we announced OEM cooperation together with Lenovo, and we have Michael Broadwood on board. Some Lenovo folks talking about this great milestone for IGEL. We're also planning at the moment a Disrupt meetup together with Carl Gersh, and we have also some in our pipeline, so stay tuned. But for now, 4th of March, you can register for the Lenovo one.
And now you might ask where to register. Here, the sign-up page where you will find all existing and all upcoming events which are happening in the next weeks. We have some great stuff in the pipeline, so please join us there. But that's not all, right, René? You have also something else to share. I would just jump up to the next slide.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of things at the moment, but I would love to highlight the latest podcast together with Evelio Garcia, former or long-time Citrix consultant, now also taking care for IGEL at Lenovo. And yeah, with the meetup together, you can, before listen to this episode, really great insights. And I was happy to spend good 45 minutes with Evelio, getting great information out of him. So yeah, and every podcast station you can listen to it. So would be happy to give that if you give me an update and feedback for that, because this is important for me and also our guest. Did you like the episode? And if you have ideas for other guests, please contact me directly and join our Behind the Hedgehog.
And that's, by the way, a great community topic, right? Because if I remember right, but please correct me, Evelio joined the community. He saw an announcement that you made on the Lenovo topic and then connected you, or what was the story behind?
Yeah, so Evelio is very active also on LinkedIn, sharing things, and I think he's now half year with Lenovo, and yeah, he's very helpful, very motivated to push and grow our business together, and yeah, he reached out proactive to me as he saw post on on LinkedIn, and yeah, since then he's an important community member.
Definitely. Great story. Thank you for that. Just sharing a few other news from the community. So we did a lot of things in the last weeks, but before we got into deep, just giving you a short idea that we are trying to give more information tailored to your needs. Means like if you are posting an event for a North American event that IGEL is coordinating, people in Germany and Switzerland might not be interested and vice versa. That's the reason why we said, why not giving you the ability to subscribe to specific topics which are important to you and only get that information which is covering your needs. As we have people from North America on the call, only events happening in North America will be notified to you, as well as if you're in a specific vertical, only informations which are related to government informations or financial services will get back to you. And that's where we created a new workflow, which is pushing you into a specific channel and giving you a direct notification on new event that we are sharing. Just one German event that we shared recently. but we are doing the same with other events and other verticals as well. So the QR code that you saw just before is the direct link to that message and how to use it. And that's the topic that we are covering there. So if you're interested in them, please follow the link that I just shared before, and we'll be happy to integrate you in that channel, in that communication. Another news, product management are talking to you. I know it sounds like an easy task, but product management from IGEL is talking directly to the community and giving you feedback, but also ideas about what is happening on our roadmap. So if you didn't have the chance to look at the post, here's the link that you can follow, because we are not inviting you as usual to a meetup, because it's not directly a meetup, it's really a calendar invite that we are sending out to you. So please go to that link, download the corresponding calendar invites, and we are happy to welcome you to that session. You can't miss it, because there was so much information and so much stuff which is going on behind the scenes. Join us. It will be an amazing call. And guess what? We have another news. As you know, we have IGEL Insiders. The IGEL Insider Group is an NDA group which is getting more information, more background information, more direct contact to our development, even product management, but also internal colleagues from IGEL. And it's a closed group. It's a VIP group. Until now, we awarded you based on some reporting, based on some feelings that we had. And guess what? Feelings are not the only thing that we need to cover. We need you, because we might have missed you in any way. So if you want to become an IGEL Insider, follow that QR code. You will not get a virus. You will just get a forms where you can subscribe and make your application to become an insider. And together with Renee, we'll review your application and hopefully welcome you on the insider class of 2024. So looking forward to this. We are going to the last page. If you have any questions during the session that Tricerat is delivering to us, please use the Q&A section of your Zoom client, or if you prefer, just use the chat, but Q&A is easier for us to follow. And well, on that note, Renee, I would say, let's hand it over to Andrew. Andrew, are you there?
Great, thank you. Yes, can you hear me okay?
Definitely. Clear as always.
And hopefully you're seeing my presentation screen.
We do.
Great.
No holiday pictures.
Great. Well, thank you, Seb. Thank you, Renee. And it's exciting to be here presenting as part of the IGEL community. We joined as an IGEL Ready partner a few years back, and certainly been part of the IGEL community as it grew over time as well. So again, thank you for having me, and look forward to our talk here today. Looking down the list of people, I see some familiar names. So those of you that are familiar with Tricerat, welcome. And a few new names on there too. So hopefully through this presentation, as we go through here and talk about why printing matters and how to integrate it into a solution stack along with IGEL, hopefully some new information comes to light. And certainly, like Seb said, if you have any questions, please make sure to hit that chat icon and we'll answer that as we go through. So I want to start with kind of an evolution of print management. Obviously, there's built-in tools to all the platforms we use, but as we've evolved and expanded and really added complexity to the number of platforms we have, printing oftentimes is still that required resource underneath that just kind of becomes more and more difficult, more and more convoluted. So we'll kind of walk through that evolution. We'll talk about Tricerat ScrewDrivers and how it fits into that modern print management mentality. And certainly one of the key points here through our presentation is how it works alongside IGEL endpoints and really works hand in hand with the UMS to deliver excellent service to your user base and also efficiency to the admins. And then we'll do a little bit of a live demo and show some diagrams about how this interacts in the larger system to hopefully give some details beyond just, kind of the headline talking points. So like I mentioned, there has been this evolution. Tricerat ScrewDrivers was invented over 20 years ago now, and really a purpose-built solution for the EUC space. Or back then it was, server-based computing extended into VDI and EUC and those type of things. Ultimately, at its core, really focused on that driver management. And the core piece of ScrewDrivers is a virtual driver that is purpose-built to operate efficiently and effectively in these kind of virtual environments, especially when we're talking about remoting into a platform that might be a different desktop, might be in your data center, might be in the cloud. As you remote to these different environments, having this virtual driver where you don't have to, as the administrator, manage what drivers are being deployed or managed in these images that you have. But instead now it's efficient in terms of performance. A login process operates much faster because it's just the virtual driver. The one driver necessary is preloaded onto that image. And then the user gets a dynamic print assignment and print experience based on who they are, where they're logging in from, maybe the IGEL endpoint device that they're connecting from. And we'll walk through some scenarios of where that really is applicable in different environments. But at the core, to be able to really minimize the pain spent on driver management, as we'll see, really helps with that, both the admin efficiency and the performance that we can get from users. Dynamic and intelligent assignments was kind of the next layer that added on top of those driver managements, where you might have tools like GPOs or scripts that work in kind of like scaled down environments or maybe very specific areas. But as you start scaling up, those solutions really become much more cumbersome, and you kind of lose control as an administrator as the environments expand out. So being able to add in these kind of dynamic assignments as these kind of EUC environments expanded out definitely became a core piece of what we talk today about modern print management and doing it in a better way. Not just in the last few years, this user self-service idea has been around obviously for quite a while, but certainly in the last few years, really being able to give the users the control that they need to make sure that they're doing their job productively. It goes beyond just giving them the right printer, building in their session automatically. Having that self-service option where they can quickly and dynamically add a printer into their session ultimately helps keep them doing their job, get the print job coming out on time and in the right place, and reducing help desk calls. And as we'll see in a minute, that's a huge piece to consider as well. And I've kind of touched on throughout these hybrid and diverse environments where you'll have your local desktops, you'll have applications are running on your IGEL endpoint, you'll have applications running from your data center, you'll have SaaS apps, you'll have cloud apps. And as you pull these different pieces in, being able to deliver a consistent print experience, both for the user or for the admin interface, but also how the user is interacting, really comes into play quite a bit. You might have heard throughout those points the why, but just to really underscore why this is important in environments, to just give a little thought to how much printing costs in terms of time and dollars. This is some surveys that we did over the last few years that shows really only 5% is buying the printers, that hardware cost. You get into operating costs, and obviously everyone thinks about like the true consumables like paper and ink. That obviously costs money, time to maintain, that sort of thing. But as you get into more of the indirect costs of admin time, case escalation, help desk costs, lost time for users when they're waiting for their printers to build or when they need to call the help desk to get something added, all of this adds into these indirect costs. And we've seen from surveys that could be 50%. And so if we can add in better layers of management to help reduce the time and cost spend in those areas, can have immediate impacts in your environment. We've seen in many customer cases, printing costs, if you just want to take like a quick average estimate, it's usually about 1 to 3% of overall revenue, which, okay, it's just a few percent. But if you take a step back and think about, okay, our overall company revenue and the number of people we support and those type of things, that can be a very large number. And in fact, on our site, we have a cost calculator where we kind of estimate those things. I'd invite you to go take a look at that and see these kind of assumptions about if half of the cases that come in are print related, and then you're escalating 15% of those. Now you're talking about time for your desktop admins, your Citrix admins, your VMware admins, these kind of escalated higher level admins time where they could be applied in different and better strategic ways. And so this kind of gets to the why, where certainly for an administrator, if you're an IT admin today listening in, it's great to think about, I can do this more efficiently and save time on my job. And that's definitely a part of it. But you can also layer in, okay, what are the costs to the end user for productivity? What, my help desk, how can I optimize that operation and really reduce those cases? So this gets into the why of why you should be looking at these modern print management solutions. And to introduce and to segue into ScrewDrivers and the way that operates, again, a purpose-built virtual driver for these EUC environments. And as we get into the demo portion and look at the different architectures, you'll see that it can adapt its way into these various platforms and layer on top of your existing. So we're not going to come in and say, okay, you have to add this server over here or do it a different way. We'll layer into that environment and optimize the printing that happens based on the way that you have your application delivery and your data delivery and the access from your users. And certainly the IGEL endpoint strategy all kind of maps into that same workflow. To dive in a little deeper into these different categories, and I've kind of broken them out into the admin side, the user side, and efficiencies for the help desk. Kind of the main points as we look into how this operates is really for the admin. I hit on this at the very beginning. The very core of this is reducing time it takes to manage drivers. If you deal with printing today, I guarantee that this is something that is a lot of time spent in managing your EUC environments. And to kind of take a sidestep, there's different areas where printing really is critical. We see this a lot in healthcare. We see this a lot in legal, manufacturing, hospitality, and there's some other industries, but those are ones where these EUC environments are the common use case for application delivery. And printing is an important part of the workflow that has to be there and ready to go for the users all the time. And so if you're an IT admin or a manager or maybe even a C-level over this kind of a technology stack, even if you're not the one directly dealing with printing, there's some piece of the operation that is doing that, and it might even be to that help desk level where you can uncover ways to optimize your environment based on what's going on today. The easy and visible assignments, big piece of that. We'll show that in a demo here coming up of just being able to simply drag and drop. And this is where I really liken it to the UMS and the IGEL style of management of, where IGEL has now in UMS 12, the applications and the profile. So based on the given application, I information to a profile and then assign that out by groups of devices or directly to devices. And at a high level, I can quickly and easily manage a whole fleet of devices and how they're configured dynamically as we put them out to the field. In the same way, we're going to do the same type of thing with the ScrewDrivers administration, where we set the different types of printers, the configuration options for those, and then can dynamically push it out from the central location easily and effectively. And so those kind of admin mentalities really line up really nice together. And that's where, these two solutions work great, among other solutions, when you're really building a solution stack for optimized EUC environments. Seb, I saw you pop in here. Do we have a question or?
No, oh, good.
No?
I was just turning on my webcam again.
Okay. If we go to user productivity, again, I've touched on some of these before. The time savings in terms of the login process and having a virtual driver that's optimized for these type of environments really helps make sure that the login process is smooth, the users get the right printers at the right time, and there is that consistent and reliable operation. I'll touch on a use case in healthcare. This is a common case where we see IGEL endpoints used right alongside with certain VDI platforms and ScrewDrivers printing. And the common case we see is for hospital staff, be it doctors or nurses, where they have these endpoints in the various rooms, and they go from room to room, usually badging in and out, and basically just disconnecting and reconnecting a session in their virtual desktop. Well, you layer printing onto that. Oftentimes, there's a printer, and it's usually a network printer, sitting in each one of these rooms, and so an admin can have a list to say, okay, client A to printer A, client B to printer B, so on and so forth. And we can import that in as a CSV list and have those assignments quickly built into our database so that as that user moves from IGEL endpoint to endpoint, the printer in their session dynamically adjusts so that when they badge into the next workstation, the correct printer loads in that environment. And so again, that kind of consistency and just automatic operation really helps improve the user experience in terms of their time and also reducing error. They know that when they go to print, the right printer is there and ready to go. They don't need to go to a list and select this. So really a critical use case there, and one that we see quite frequently, taking advantage of these dual management platforms. And help desk operation, we have some case studies on our website where we've seen customers of ours reduce like 87% in terms of their caseload. Those are kind of ones where they were really struggling and drowning in print cases, and we were able to bring that down. On average, we see about a 30% reduction, which still, if you think about it, the number of cases that come in every day, sometimes it might be, hey, this printer needs paper. Well, sorry, you're still going to have to go out and do that. But in terms of making sure it's a reliable operation, making sure that they have the access to the printers they need, all that can be done much more effectively using a modern print management solution. As we get into hybrid work, again, this is a newer topic, one that in the EUC traditions has been discussed for a long time, but become much more mainstream here recently. And also with more and more of a push towards cloud computing at the desktop level. In other words, running a remote session in that cloud. But I've also seen, there's also new trends coming out where, okay, there was kind of a big shift to the cloud, and now there's kind of like a settling or a normalization happening where, okay, there are workloads that are optimized and best suited for the cloud, but there's also operations that make more sense, especially from a cost perspective, to run on-prem. And so now we get this situation where I have hybrid location where a user might be in the office or at home or on the road. I'm also getting desktops from multiple places in the same day usually, or from the same device. And so having the seamless integration and frictionless across these different environments in a hybrid model is critical. And certainly operating with the cloud, be it a private cloud, public cloud, DaaS, all of these situations needs to make sure that it can be managed in the same way. And one little quick note here is one of the challenges when we think of with cloud computing when it comes to printing is ultimately the printer is local. You don't really have any such thing as like a cloud printer. Now, sure, you might have a cloud print queue where you're printing from an application, but ultimately it needs to translate from the cloud to where I am and translate from that digital document and print job into an analog physical piece of paper. And so that's where a system like ScrewDrivers that can bridge the gap between where your data and apps are running and get that on-prem to make sure that you have, the actual printer that you need available. It's a different kind of use case than normal, where I might just be logging in and editing a Word document online, where now I need to get to a point where it needs to flow down back to my local endpoint and out to my printer that's sitting right next to me. Yeah, actually, that's it. Here on this slide, the seamless digital print transition. That's kind of what I was talking about there in terms of bridging that gap between these environments. This slide really brings together what we talked about in terms of that cohesive management platform. And so as we transition into actually showing some of this in action, there's a few different use cases that we'll talk about in terms of an IGEL endpoint connecting into maybe a VDI system, a remote desktop, and having all network print management. We'll have situations where an IGEL endpoint needs to have a local printer mapped into that remote session. And we'll also talk about where IGEL endpoint needs to print locally itself and manage the printing on that IGEL endpoint device. And so these are different situations that we'll highlight and really speaks to how Tricerat as an IGEL-ready partner is continuing to push and evolve based on user requests and IT admin needs to make sure that these are cohesive environments together. And I'll also show where they work together very well as part of that unified stack, or even where you're in the two separate, like a UMS and ScrewDrivers administration, how it still promotes the same kind of goals and objectives with those two applications. Oh, yeah. One point on here too is deployment through the UMS. So for those use cases where the ScrewDrivers agent needs to be on that IGEL endpoint, then we have ways to get the ScrewDrivers agent into the UMS to then push out to those endpoints the same way you would other applications or profile settings. So that's very exciting. As we look at Cosmos and IGEL 12, this is certainly part of our modifications of how we're deploying these apps. So we do have custom partitions for the IGEL 11 and the UMS 6 style of management, but also in the transition to UMS 12, having apps that are delivered through the app portal. And we're working very closely with the IGEL team to make sure that we're in line with the security requirements and the operation requirements to be plugged into that IGEL portal and then be able to deploy through the apps. So some of this is still in progress, and we'll show a roadmap there at the end, but we're continuing down this journey to make sure we're supporting the latest technologies that are being pushed out by the IGEL team. Okay, so let me switch over here.
So just in case, Andrew, you didn't miss any questions, so we can just go forward with the demo if you like.
Excellent, thank you. So here's an IGEL desktop. First, I'm going to log into an AVD session, and we'll take a look first at what I was talking about in terms of what ScrewDrivers administration looks like and the user view of ScrewDrivers printers. And so hopefully that'll just give some context to what we were talking about and help you visualize when I say, hey, dynamic assignments is easy. We'll show how that's done here. So here in my AVD session, I will start the ScrewDrivers administration, and this is our admin portal in terms of how we manage printing in an environment. And so this is driven by a database. And so if you're on-prem, usually you'd be using a Microsoft SQL Server. If you're running a cloud-based instance, it would be Azure databases. And so that's the centralized model to make sure that then as you're making changes here in ScrewDrivers administration, your agents are automatically going to pick up the changes and can refresh their printers right away and get the latest settings. I can manage print servers in here. And so here's a couple examples of print servers. This is one that's running up in the cloud environment. And so I can refresh and get the printers, the queues that are listed on that print server. I actually have an example here of this T print server is actually running in our Baltimore headquarters. And so even though the desktop is running in the cloud using the ScrewDrivers cloud connector, it can connect down and retrieve the printers from our office and then segue print jobs from the cloud desktop to our office environment that way. And so it's kind of highlighting that a print server could be running published in the cloud, or you can have that local print server that is joined to the cloud through the cloud connector. Once we have these printers in here, we can see our Active Directory domain. In this case, I'm using an Entra ID domain services. On-prem, again, would be Active Directory. So I can even browse through, find my particular user or group that I want to assign to, and I can drag a printer over, and through just, let me do that again. Through a simple drag and drop operation, I drag over onto my user. It pops up and says, do I want to always show this printer? Meaning like the admin is pushing the printer out, or I can give the user the ability to add or remove it based on the ScrewDrivers printers, which we'll get to in a second. I won't bother adding that right now, but that's how simple the drag and drop is. And you can see in here, I can even see, okay, I have 2 printers assigned directly to this user, and I have a few others that are inherited. In fact, if I look in here, I can see the see where I inherit this from. And so the assignments can build up based on the AD groups that they're members of or their actual user. Now, I mentioned earlier that healthcare scenario, and this might be maybe even insurance offices that might have different locations where a user might be roaming around, or any number of other environments where I want to assign printers based on the endpoint. And so if I have IGEL endpoints that I've deployed out there and named these different versions, and I could even have a wildcard. So like if my IGEL clients are called IGEL 123, I can encapsulate all of that through a wildcard capture as well. This works with IP ranges. This works with client names. And then we can also group them together to say, okay, well, on the 3rd floor, here's all my 3rd floor printers that I've given users allowed access to. And so based on these IP ranges or the clients that I know are deployed there, those IGEL endpoints in those locations, a user walks up, logs in, they're going to get that printer or have access to that printer just based on the client that they're connecting from. I don't have available to demo at the moment, but we do have what we call ScrewDrivers automation, where we can bring in a CSV file. I kind of referenced this earlier. So with just a CSV file, I can have it. In fact, that's how I imported these to say, here's the workstations, and they're grouped under Clinic 1, Clinic 2, 3rd floor, etc. And so if you have like a desktop deployment team that has a list of here's the clients and then here's the printers that are nearby, format that into a CSV, and within seconds, you can import a list in here. We've seen, several thousands of IGEL endpoints mapped to specific printers done very quickly with that kind of CSV automation, and then import into the database. I spoke of print server printers, but we do have the ability to upload drivers natively into our database. And so if you have an IP printer that's just connected to the network, like in this case, I have a Xerox printer at a certain IP address, and the driver has been uploaded to the database, I can now go in and add this as what we call a direct IP printer, so that when a user logs in on their session, we'll handle getting the right driver, installing the print queue, and adding access directly to the IP or host name for that printer. And so then the print job would go directly from my session to that printer. So this is important to consider, that if you have print servers, we'll layer on by putting our agent on and optimizing it. We can definitely push a lot more print jobs and keep it more stable than a native, regular Windows print server. Over time, they've kind of gotten a bad rap because, quite frankly, the spooler, as a single-threaded service, doesn't handle that kind of load, or it kind of hits a certain cap. Where our service threads that properly to the Windows print spooler and optimizes the print servers. So if you have print servers in play now, I would suggest layering this on top gets you those management benefits and performance optimizations, and you can keep leveraging all the same reasons that you put print servers in place in the first place. However, if you don't have print servers or looking to decommission them, with this tool, we can handle direct IP printing as well. There's a lot more in ScrewDrivers administration, but we'll leave it at that in terms of this high-level overview. I do want to quickly point out a couple things from the user perspective. And so we have this app called ScrewDrivers Printers, where a user can come in here and see the printers that they have available and add available printers from a list. They can also come to a map and say, okay, well, if I'm working in this location today, I can come in here, add this printer, and using our virtual driver, that printer will refresh in the session immediately for that user, and so they can add it and carry on with their day. Or if I'm traveling to a certain location and then I need to use the Zebra printer from the warehouse, again, I can add that into my session and have it available for printing. I didn't really speak to single queue printing or held jobs, but if a user adds a print job that we have marked for hold and release, that would show up in here, and they can click on release a job and have that then extend out to the printer. And one other thing before we leave this system, we're adding more and more capabilities to our reporting so that every print job that flows through the system can be logged into the database. And so we can come in and see a list of print jobs that have come through the system, the desktop that printed, the user, how many pages, and so on and so forth. We can build charts and graphs based on who's printing. We can see different, there's a chart builder in here, so we can do some queries to find out what printers are the most active, number of pages per user, color versus black and white. And so you can help get some of that data. And back to that discussion about costs, that can help uncover what's going on in your environment much better than just, waiting for someone to call and hear that it's out of ink. Next, I'm going to switch over to show ScrewDrivers running embedded into some IGEL systems. I do want to, before we switch there, just kind of highlight what we just saw in terms of an architecture diagram. This is kind of one of the common use cases, not all of them, but a lot, where using an IGEL endpoint can connect into through RDP, ICA, VMware, whatever it might be, connect into a remote desktop, and then have a combination of print jobs that go through a print server. Like I might have this printer sitting right next to my client, but it can flow through a print server, or printing out to direct IP printers as well. And so either of those scenarios works here in this situation. Or if you want to talk about it in a cloud scenario, again, the VDI desktops now move up to the cloud. We add that cloud connector. The example I just showed where I had the print server on-prem, that goes through the cloud connector, and it is a reverse proxy. So I don't have to open any ports in my local environment to then connect to that cloud connector and get the print job flowing through, or a direct IP print job. If you have like a direct route or express route or a VPN, if you've got that connectivity from the cloud to your on-prem environment, then that direct print works. What I'll show next is this kind of a style of endpoint printing. So actually, let me queue up. Where are we? Let me log into a on-prem Citrix environment. And so as I log into this desktop here, going back to the diagram, what we've done here is added the, we have a cups printer that's built on this IGEL endpoint, and the Tricerat component also installed on this IGEL endpoint, and then connecting into, in this case, a Citrix server. This particular example is done with IGEL 11 and the UMS 6, and we've deployed this using this custom partition. So there's a URL that you can put in that will automatically download the component from the website, run a custom partition script that will then run as it's installed, and add the components to your Citrix plugin, or for free RDP if you're using RDP. And we'll have a link at the end, but we do have a page on our knowledge base that actually walks through this for an IGEL 11 scenario, adding that custom partition in, and then if you have RDP or AVD, how to add in the client connection for when you connect up there. Switching back over, let's see. If I look now at, and actually the printer's didn't build. It's still churning. What we'll build here will be connecting into this Citrix session. And so we have ScrewDrivers endpoint running on this Citrix session. And so it's using that virtual driver behind the scenes to select what client printers from the IGEL endpoint to send up. I didn't show the screen, but we had those cups printers installed. And then building those using the virtual print drivers available to print in your applications running on that Citrix server. The last piece I'll demonstrate here is, actually this slide just says it will combine with local client printing and network printing at the same time. So kind of layering all of those components together that we talked about before. And then finally with this IGEL network printing, this is where on an IGEL endpoint, we can install the ScrewDrivers printer. So in our product terminology, this is ScrewDrivers Pro. So going beyond just that client printing, but actually doing the management of network printing. And so we can see my user has logged in. This is kind of analogous to what I showed on that AVD session in terms of the ScrewDrivers printers. But I can see this user has access to these printers. If necessary, I can switch over to this map view and say, okay, I'm in this branch office today, add a printer from here. And then with the printers that I have selected, this will actually dynamically build the printers as cups printers from this network print location. And so using Tricerat ScrewDrivers administration, we've now connected to those network printers, deployed ScrewDrivers Pro out to these IGEL endpoints, and then had it build the cups printers on those devices. If we come in here and look at file print from a web browser, for instance, and we see the printers that are available, I now have available to me, these are the Tricerat ScrewDrivers printers that were pushed out by ScrewDrivers administration. So to look at it from the diagram point of view again, this is where I've installed ScrewDrivers on my IGEL endpoint, installed it on the print server, and then I can now map. I'm not connecting into a remote desktop in this scenario. I'm actually using local IGEL applications, but have those cups printers available to me. So if the IGEL endpoint is the one doing the printing, this is the scenario that we'd use. And then for this is what I referenced earlier in terms of working with the IGEL team now, as far as deploying this as an application that'll come in here into the UMS 12 web interface. So going out to the app portal, adding this in, it comes down as the most recent version, and then I can assign this to my devices. And then I can assign the, where'd it go? I lost it. Assigning the Tricerat ScrewDrivers Pro app into my folders for management and push out and delivery through the UMS. So again, this is where it kind of works hand in hand in terms of using the UMS to deploy the ScrewDrivers agent, and then how the IGEL UMS has the same folder and high-level profile push out. You would use the ScrewDrivers administration to have the dynamic printer assignments, so that users for these IGEL endpoints will then get the printers based on who they are in the directory, and then also the IGEL endpoint that they're connecting from. All right, we'll head towards wrapping up. I just want to kind of outline a few of the more technical details in terms of what's needed for one of these deployments. There's basically the components of the database, the directory, the license server. Those are like the back-end component, so to speak. And then obviously you would install out the agents, which would be either in your remote desktop sessions or on the IGEL endpoint. So if that's on-prem, that would usually be SQL Server, Active Directory, and a license server that's just running on one of your VMs or a server that you have. If you're in an AVD or an Azure instance, we can take advantage of the Azure databases, adding in a service for the Entra ID domain services, which then has everything LDAP compatible. And then right now a VM for the license server, but we're in the process of bundling that as a Docker container that can be pushed out into the Azure instance. This just kind of illustrates if we have, some AVD instances, we'd have different components down there at the bottom in terms of the domain services, the database, a server for licensing, and then if we added in a ScrewDrivers gateway, that's how it would connect from your print server to the print devices, excuse me, that are on the AVD session. Looking ahead, right now what we've shown in terms of on-prem delivery, in-instance delivery in a cloud environment, these are all areas that are available right now today. Looking to extend how we're doing the IGEL updates with, as an IGEL ready partner, having ScrewDrivers Pro and Endpoint client as applications in the app portal for easy deployment, but making sure we support both, traditional environments that are in the process of upgrading or new environments that are starting right away with Cosmos and IGEL 12. ScrewDrivers reports is something that is also continuing development. I showed a peek of that earlier in the demo. And we're actually going to be licensing that as a standalone. And so it can be used alongside ScrewDrivers Pro, Enterprise, or as a feature of itself, and adding in SNMP reporting and other types of capabilities to make sure that you're seeing all of the data possible in terms of managing the print environment. And we are building a hosted Tricerat service that will then, basically in that last slide where we talked about the database and the licensing and whatnot, it will encapsulate all that. So it's just the agents that need to be installed at either the endpoint or on the session hosts, and then connecting into that ScrewDrivers cloud service. And so that is something that's in development and will be rolling out through 2024. So certainly keep an eye on that. Visit our website and you can register for updates in terms of as that becomes available, and then the options of either customer installed and customer hosted, be it on-prem, cloud, or hybrid, or Tricerat hosted, again for those same on-prem, cloud, or hybrid environments. So very exciting things coming down the road in terms of ScrewDrivers this year. Just to kind of recap in terms of efficiency for IT management, high performance printing. Hopefully, as we talk through the session, it was really evident of why, in terms of why modern print management can really optimize your organization in terms of its efficiency and effectiveness, but also productivity for users and driving and keeping print costs down while delivering a better service out to your users. So again, if you'd like to learn more, obviously tricerat.com is a great place to go for that. In fact, we just launched a new page linked there, IGEL-printing, which focuses directly on scenarios of Tricerat ScrewDrivers running alongside and bundled with IGEL deployments in the field. And so there's more information there. We do also, on the IGEL Community Slack, there is a channel for TP-Tricerat. Some information about Tricerat goes into there. But if you have any questions in terms of Tricerat working alongside and with IGEL deployments, that would be a great place to come in and ask questions and find more information. And then finally,
maybe just a short answer here, Andrew. If someone is interested in that channel, please text us. We will guide you to that channel. Or if you like to do it by your own, just go to channels and browse channels, and there you will have all the technology partners that are onboarded in the community, where you can just subscribe to the channel and discuss lively with our great Tricerat colleagues.
Excellent, thank you. The last point on there is, I think, one that I showed already, was just our KB, obviously also a good place for information. But we work with customers all the time of, one-on-one with our engineering team to listen to what you have in your environment now and the challenges that you have, where you're looking to go, if you're looking to add cloud services or migrate to other platforms, or just the hassles of deployment. So we love having the conversations of hearing what your situation is, and then presenting how it can layer on and having a back and forth conversation of ways to engineer a better solution, have this fit into your environment. Again, it's not like a one size, you've got to do it this way. We really pride ourselves on layering in and adjusting to the situation at hand. And that's where I think, again, we come alongside IGEL very well in terms of the versatility and the flexibility of the solution, and making sure that, again, as a piece of this overall solution stack, we work well together and effectively for user environments. So, Seb, that's what I have. Or Renee, any follow-up questions? I know we're coming to the end of the time.
That's correct, but you fitted it perfectly. Let me just check, but in the chat it's pretty quiet, and the Q&A also, so I'm guessing that you covered everything in your presentation already. No? Looks good?
Fantastic.
Then I would say, guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining. I will, as usual, ask you, if you didn't join until now, to join the IGEL community on join.igelcommunity.com. And we will share the recording as well as the news information on our IGEL community on Slack and on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe us. We will give us a few days to render the video, but we will be there. Thank you very much, all. Have a great evening. Have a great time, and see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.